We are back on a Wednesday, and that means Whiteboard Wednesday, and this is the third take. The first two were a little bit too long, and what I'm doing is highlighting how I made a mistake earlier today on the X and Y axis and why it's important to understand the difference, and a little trick that you can use in order to understand the difference. Earlier today I posted about knowing your X variable, and I mistakenly put the X axis over here. This is actually the y-axis. The vertical axis is the y-axis. The horizontal axis is the x-axis. Why am I talking about this on a Whiteboard Wednesday? Well, one of the things that there are a couple of ways to remember the difference between x and y-axis. Number one, just remind yourself, x-axis, horizontal. Many times the things that are in your x-axis are things like date, time. It's this, what we're looking at is data over a period of time. This might be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, etc. But x-axis, horizontal. Y-axis, this is, let's say it's the thing that we're measuring, the data that we're keeping track of. Maybe it's revenue that we're keeping track of, or in the instance that I shared earlier today, it was impressions on LinkedIn posts. One of the ways that another way to know the difference or distinguish the difference between the x-axis and the y-axis is that y-axis can be manipulated to reinforce a point that the person who has put the data together is looking to drive home. What do I mean by that? Well, one of the most common mistakes that'll happen, it's not even a mistake, people do this intentionally, is they don't zero the y-axis. So y-axis, vertical, x-axis, horizontal, y-axis, when looking at data, check to see what the scale is or whether or not it's zeroed. Now, what happens if we don't zero the y-axis? Granted, I'm not a math professional, as you know. However, I am talking about a little bit of math and data visualization here at a relatively simple level. But let's say that my y-axis is 100 to 110. There's only 10 points between those two things. And this month, we have this kind of growth. This month, we have this kind of growth. This month, we have this kind of growth. The next month, we have this. We see some of this variance here inside the y-axis. It actually looks like our data, for the most part, is trending up, and that there's a high level of variance. There might even be some things that we need to watch out for in these specific months. Now, imagine that this is only 10 points between here. Now, imagine what happens if this gets zeroed. What do you think happens to the data? Well, actually, this data no longer has the same kind of variance. These numbers look significantly smaller, right? So over time, you might look at these and the data might be so nuanced, so small, the changes might be so small that this actually looks flat over a period of time. Just because I didn't change anything in the data, I didn't change anything in the numbers remain the same, but the way that I'm representing the numbers changed because I zero the y-axis here. Why would somebody do this? Let's say we want to highlight a significant change in revenue growth, or we want to highlight a significant change in MQLs that are coming into the organization, or we want to highlight a significant change. By manipulating the y-axis, we can demonstrate that there's a much higher level of variance than is actually the reality over a period of time. Now, do I think everybody goes out there and manipulates data like this? I don't. Do I think it happens? Absolutely. Have I seen it happen? 100%. So one thing to check, one, know your x-axis versus your y-axis, horizontal versus vertical, and know that the y-axis is the thing that you'd like to see zeroed if you're looking at large amounts of data and trying to get an understanding of how that data changes over a period of time. If you want to get into the nuance and the detail, then start to change your scales a bit. But know what you're driving, know the agenda you're driving. Now, another way that you can take data and start to compare data sets that are significantly different, let's say we're looking at someone who has many more impressions than I do. I can actually create a secondary y-axis. And by creating a secondary y-axis, I can overlap data that ends up being significantly different. Let's say I want to track minutes of usage versus number of people. If I didn't have a secondary axis, my numbers of people would be much smaller and be washed out. If I create this secondary axis, I can actually see some data to see whether or not these things are correlated or related or inversely related. So know your axis, leverage your data properly, and make sure that you're evaluating information so that your mind is not necessarily being manipulated by a high level of variance if your y-axis is not 0. Hope that was helpful for you. I'm actually working on an interesting project where there are some book summaries that talk about this kind of data visualization. One that I'm looking at right now is Naked Statistics. If you're interested in book summary content or have ever been in one of those situations where someone gives you something really big to read and you just don't have time to get through the reading, but you need to be able to have an appropriate conversation with folks, you want to draw some alignment, you want to put that content to action, you can check out Shortform or send me a direct message if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that. I'm really excited about the approach and what we're doing differently in the marketplace when it comes to not only summarizing information, but getting into practical application of that information. Hope you enjoyed the Whiteboard Wednesday. Excited to be back. Thanks.